So, this Jason Arday thing. I was on Instagram earlier on and I picked up on Dan McGarvey's comments on the situation, and I think he nailed it by not apportioning the blame to everyone, but responsibility to people who were involved in the construction of the problem and those that were involved in his deconstruction. I've got a really bad hangover. It's been a shit show, an absolute, really bad, horrific shit show. I find it hard not to lay blame with the proponents of DE&I. I really do. It's really hard to not take it in that direction. And I'm really trying to figure out what happened and how did it happen. I mean, think about where it started, okay? We have to go all the way back to 2023. Cambridge appointed him as Professor of Sociology, I think, and Education maybe. So he was celebrated as the youngest black professor, okay? And they leaned really heavily on this really extraordinary personal narrative that was fairly, odd to the sane mind. They looked at they thought his autism spectrum, the fact that he was non-verbal till he was 10 or 11, I think. And then he only started speaking at 18 and 19, and then within a few years, he was a professor. I mean, this is a hell of a meteoric rise in academia that is just unheralded. Who else did that wasn't a genius? And then all the vast sums of money that he raised, okay? Millions for different charities, the marathons that he run in, the fantastical stuff that he claimed he'd been involved in. Now, this suited everyone in the faculties, right? What they're thinking, oh, we've got this thing here that fits the narrative perfectly for us. Let's not question it. Let's just think about the anecdotal lived experiences telling us. Let's not scrutinise it, okay? And this goes on everywhere. So it's never been challenged. It doesn't get challenged in the corporations. It doesn't get challenged in the healthcare systems, the police and everything else. They're just popped in. And that's it. And then the expectation is they're supposed to then go ahead and do the full vocation, okay? And it's really just so they can perform virtues that they wanted, that they could allow themselves to display and gain credit for, right? They made it all about themselves, Cambridge and Liverpool to some extent. It was such a useful conduit for their own preferred narrative. I mean, his thesis was plagiarism. The matchings were word for word in spelling mistakes as well. In the context. The claims about his childhood stories, all the monies he raised, all those things, when they were checked and scrutinised, they found that none of it was actually true. It blows my mind that as soon as public scrutiny and examination does that, they haven't got a clue how to respond to it. And the poor guy is exposed to everyone on his own after such a big fall. He doesn't know where to go. He goes to probably try and find peace from everything. And he's now no longer here. He's no longer here. And I'm not going to speculate on how he's no longer here. But I think it's likely that he's not here through his own choice. And I'll leave that there. And I find it shit. I find it all really bad for everybody involved. The academic institutions themselves, I mean, they selected him, showcased him, made him really visible, made it really symbolic. So his narrative power, what he had to offer them outside of talent and education, they turned him into this DE&I wonder boy, this advert, this epitome of progress, they thought, but this was only in their heads, right? So as soon as their narrative started to be picked apart, the poor guy at the middle of it all, who should never have been there, never, was completely exposed in every way and to everybody. And when you get caught out in the lie, you've got two options perhaps. You knuckle down and keep the lie going, which is absurd, or you put your hands up and say, I lied. He didn't really do either. He chose a different route, unfortunately. There's always a predictable risk when you're treating demographic representation and inspirational bullshit biographies as a primary criteria, which is secondary to actually evidence and intellectual contributions, it just creates this incentive to overlook the reality and the truth. That's the important thing. They just want to protect the symbol, the representation of moral and virtue signalling, rather than actually do the job. Someone who's competent, who has merit, who can prove they're capable of doing it. So when it comes out, everybody goes after him. Nobody's gone after the faculty yet. We've not got the names. We've not got the individuals that sanctioned it, that validated it, ratified it. They didn't want that. They just wanted to tell everyone how amazing he was. And a couple of them still did it, despite him being caught. They were still saying that, no, he's amazing, he's brilliant. And I absolutely guarantee you that the email trails and all the internal communications as we speak are currently being deleted, are currently going missing, right? Their policies of, well, we don't keep emails after 2 years, they're all starting to go, okay? And the guy did not really get here. So the question is inclusion for him, for Jason, right? In a high-stakes performance that he was in, he didn't actually get inclusion. He was just useful to those people, just useful. So all these people in the background that were writing the play for him was fine. They didn't believe themselves to blame. They put their actor on the stage. The actor was booed. They threw things at him. It didn't go down well. But the people who own the theatre, the people that do the lighting, the people that construct the props, that own the building, nothing to do with them. We just thought he was a great actor. Show us the evidence of him being great at acting. Well, we really can't. That's where we got to with it. Okay? I had the same issue to some extent. I mean, it's a competency question. I would never do something, if something required 10 to be competent enough or to specialise in that particular field to be a professor, I would not be able to do it if I was a 2 or a 3. I would need to learn all the other integers that come between that, right? I wouldn't put myself out there. But clearly Jason had some other underlying issues with his autism or with his personality characteristics, perhaps. But the university didn't care about that. They just saw this fucking poor poster boy and just thought, look, everyone, this amazing young black lad, he's amazing, he's unbelievably talented. White people, you're all wrong about this guy. And here's the thing as well, that's really bad. It undermines the legitimate efforts of other black people who are striving to break through the prejudices that have existed for decades. It totally undermines their effort. And what it does, it'll just create a culture, a sustained culture of suspicion. This story is broke everywhere, globally. So what'll happen with other black people in roles of particular note or stature, people will be like, yeah, how did you get this job again? It's unfortunate. Now, there is some people in good positions, rock solid senior positions or leadership positions that have been handpicked, that have been appointed. And again, it's because of the pressure to get the ESG scores up, to make sure that the annual report looks really good. And they don't care, or really care about the individual, and it's this group of white intellects, white academics who are heavily invested in the politics of the far left, the hard left, that have been fed a diet of the critical social justice, the critical theories, the Derek Bell stuff, the Angela Reid stuff, the Frankfurt School, everything that's gone on since the early 1960s. They are now so fucking brainwashed in that shit, so invested in it, they cannot actually understand that they are doing something wrong. They think it doesn't matter as long as it looks like it's right, as long as we believe it's right. I mean, think about that. Universities, the intellectual endeavour for the pursuit of truth through the scientific method, through peer review, through having a cynical mind, which is really important, a skeptical mind. until you get to the point where you can conclude this is all true. And then when you prove something to be true, it becomes useful, genuinely and legitimately useful. But that's not what's happened here. It's awful. It's awful what Cambridge did. They just kept exposing this guy all the time for their own, let's face it, narcissism. Moral narcissism is what I would call it. Not a single thought about repercussions should it ever see the light of day. And that's the critique. That is ultimately the problem here, right? So I don't know where to go from here. I personally would like to see the an investigation, a wide, large-scale, independent, which is, I suppose, in these days, hard to get independence in anything, because everyone has a political slant on everything, right? But there's so much corruption going on in our academies, in the great, universities that we once had in this country, that there has to be a reset. There really does. I'd like to see them do what happened to Jason, not the outcome, but the system of investigation, not just with black employees, not just with brown employees, but with everybody, to rule out cronyism or nepotism or everything or any negative reason why they landed that position in the first place. Because it just seems that competency and merit are terms from a bygone era now. They really are. That what comes first is the visual, the aesthetic. What comes first is the blackness of someone, the gayness of someone, and I know they score points on this as well. They literally score points. They do it at the interview stage. They're told to consider equity before they make any other decision. And that therefore by default means they have to be biased against groups. They have to show some degree of bigotry against certain groups. And those certain groups usually tend to be at the very top, white men. Then it's white women. And they have this whole hierarchy that they either have an official scorecard for, or they just do it because they feel like doing it. And I've seen this firsthand happening. I've seen things that I'm not in a place I can speak about. I'm just horrified by. And you get a blank stare. Or you get someone, you get them who just, they'll get angry with you if you try and raise it. Like, no matter how true you are, how honest what you're trying to express is, they just do not like the challenge. And as soon as you try and challenge it, you're seen as a troublemaker. You're seen as the bad guy. You're like, well, why would you challenge it? Are you racist? Oh, the fatigue is unbelievable. It's unbelievable. It's like, no, I'm not racist. But if we're going to have some groups raising themselves up, we have to start at the very bottom. We have to analyse and be honest about what is really going wrong. But we do not do that. We just artificially take the problem on, and then we end up with dead bodies now. Now, I've been at the receiving end of this physically. The consultant who operated on my back in 2010, I think it was, he wasn't even a qualified neurologist. He's a North African guy. I don't know how he got the job. He wasn't qualified to do the job. There's a criminal investigation into the guy and into Ninewells Hospital in Dundee that still hasn't been resolved. A decade or so later, I've got profound issues in my left leg. I can hardly use that. I've got muscle wastage. I've got pain every single day because his appointment should never have gone through. And why? There was no due diligence done behind the scenes by the health board. There's real consequences for this stuff. Everyone thinks it's, yeah, but racism, yeah, but misogyny, yeah, but that's their go-to to shut you up. That's their go-to so you cannot challenge the discourse. They want to control the dialectic of things. They want to control what you can and cannot say because they just do not see themselves as being possible, that they can possibly be erroneous in their thinking. So it's a mess. It's a mess. And I really hope that for that young lad's sake and for the sake of others, that we get to the truth. Those people that allowed this to happen are outed. I really mean that. They lose their jobs. They should be criticised. They should be publicly exposed as well for being liars. And I hope if they've broke the law there as well, to some degree fraud, they should be up in the courts for that as well. But who am I? Just a normal lad sitting in his summer house with a mother hangover, waiting on my tea coming. Anyway, thanks for listening.